Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Tom Willis, and we're going to be talking about his new book, The Great Engagement, where it's the great engagement with the word resignation crossed out. Tom, welcome. And I'm really interested in talking to you. Great book. Where can people find you?
Yeah, great, Tim. Thanks for having me on. Well, the website is thegreatengagementbook.com, not surprisingly, thegreatengagementbook.com. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn under Thomas Willis, live in Michigan here in the United States.
Yes, you're Thomas, aren't you, on LinkedIn? I remember searching for you. And so as I said, Tom, great book. What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, we talked about writing the book. My business partner and I talked about it for probably 5 or 6 years, Tim, frankly, and finally mustered the courage and the energy to do it about 2 years ago. And it came out just this past January. And there was probably a few reasons, if I'm honest with you. One of them is we just wanted to reach more people, reach more leaders that maybe didn't have access to some of the ideas that are in the book. We have a approach to culture transformation that actually we promise results, and we think it's pretty good stuff accordingly. And so we just want to get it into more people's hands. Another part of the reason, to be honest with you, is a little bit of ego, I think, for both of us to be able to write a book and to have our name on it.
I hear being an author is a good thing, Tom.
It is. It's a whole new level of sort of how you see yourself. It's been a fascinating journey from that perspective, from the imposter syndrome all the way through to owning it and now doing keynote speaking about it. So it's been a lot of fun in that regard. And it's also sharpened our thinking quite a bit. You know, the discipline of writing a book is not easy. I have a lot more respect for authors now.
Yeah. So I know when we had the preparation call, you said to me 70% of people are disengaged at work. Am I right in that?
Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's quite sad, frankly. Just a few months ago, Gallup released their latest engagement survey, and that's what they determined. It's at an all-time low, I believe, as far as engagement goes. That only about 30% of people are engaged, which means the vast majority of folks are just kind of showing up and doing their job, but not exactly thoroughly engaged in what they're doing. And about 51% of folks are either open to or actively looking for another job. So that's pretty sad as well.
I guess in the current climate that actually you've got a certain amount of people that are only working there because they probably feel that they can't find something else.
Yeah, it's sort of I got a paycheck, so why take the risk of
Absolutely. Let's batten down the hatches for 12 months or something.
Yeah, which is sad. And I think there's so much that can be done about it. But at the end of the day, it's really upon the leader and leadership team to really look in the mirror and say, what can we do about this?
So what other common traits have you seen in exceptional culture?
Yeah, great question. Well, the first is what I just said, which is an acknowledgement that we need to own and shape the culture as the leadership team. And it always emanates from the CEO or whoever's at the top. Yep. If it's a school superintendent or a nonprofit president or a large corporation CEO, that ultimately the culture is emanating from their leadership style. And the challenge is that most folks don't realize that most of culture is like an iceberg. Most of it happens unconsciously. And so if we're going to go about shaping a better culture, even if you have a good one, you know, how do you make it better? It starts with looking in the mirror and saying, you know, we got to go to work. We got to be intentional about this. And we got to become much more conscious about how we're showing up at work and the unintended consequences of our behavior and who we're being and how we're acting.
And so, I mean, my next question was, what role does leadership play in driving engagement? But in a way, you're answering that, which is it's their job, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, my business partner, Brad, likes to say that, you know, partnerships are not 50-50. They've got to be 100%, 100%, meaning in this case, the leadership has to own the culture 100%, and they have to inspire their team members to own the culture 100% also. There's this idea we're all cultural ambassadors. We all own the culture, and we're either adding to it with every single decision, every single conversation, every single email that we send, or we're detracting from it. And there is no neutral. And so as leaders, as employees, we all have to be 100% bought into a bigger vision, which is at the end of the day can be really as simple as we all want to make it better here. How are we going to work together to make this culture a better place to work and a place to be much more engaged and much more fulfilled?
And leadership is hard, isn't it?
It is not for the faint of heart. That is for sure. I always joke with leaders that the good news is that you're in the room. The bad news is you're in the room and you need to own it and step up and take ownership of it and stop blaming other people or circumstances or the economy, or especially, this generation, because it is what it is. We have to radically accept whatever it is. And then we have to go to work on making it better.
Yeah. So,
you had asked Tim, I don't think I answered your earlier question about what makes an exceptional culture. And there's lots of things. We could talk about this for hours, but I'll give you three that we think are at the top of the list. One is, is a truly engaged culture. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means people are engaged in the mission, the vision, the future, the purpose. They're engaged in it. They care. They come to work because they care about what the organization, what the team is trying to bring into the world and the value that the organization is trying to provide to its customers. So engagement in that mission, being on a mission, not a mission statement, those are mostly useless, frankly, but being on a mission that animates you is probably the most powerful piece of it and the biggest indicator of an engaged team.
It's the old story, isn't it, of JFK was going around NASA and he goes up to the janitor and says, what's your job? And the janitor says, sir, I'm helping put a man on the moon. Nowadays, it'd be a person on the moon, but in those days, it was a man on the moon.
Exactly. Yep. And where everyone owns it. We all see our piece in it. And that janitor really believed it. In fact, the most inspiring person I've met in the last 8 years of doing this work across the country, Tim, is actually a janitor at a university, because she had the same view that her job was to provide dignity to the students there so that they could go out and they could make a difference in the world, because they deserved it. They deserved honor and respect. And she went on and on. It was amazing. It still gives me chills. And so by far, that's the biggest indicator is that culture of engagement, of inspiration. And ultimately, if we can convert that into aspiration, where people actually have their own aspiration, that's even more powerful. The second is what we would call a coaching culture, a culture where people coach each other. They help each other grow. They help each other get better. And now coaching is only coaching if it's asked for. So that's part of the magic of it, is you got to figure out how to create a culture where people are open to it and they're willing to listen to each other, because nobody knows everything. We can all learn from each other. And then the third big one is a culture of integrity, a culture where people do what they say they're going to do, which seems so simple, but it's astounding to me how infrequent that really does exist, especially in our society. We say, well, I'll try to do that. And so helping to really create a much more solid culture where everyone does what they say they're going to do. When you bring those three things together, you have a really powerful and very engaged team.
So is the culture, is the coaching a bit like a learning organization, or is that the same sort of thing?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's call it coaching, call it learning, whatever. But the idea is that we don't get defensive when somebody else gives us an idea. When somebody else has a different perspective, we're able to be capital I inclusive. We're able to include their idea into our thinking, even if we don't agree with it at first. But just to be able to consider it and to be able to let it in is a really powerful mindset.
There's a Jeff Bezos, isn't it, that says that they have that rule about disagreeing, don't they? Where you're allowed to disagree, but you've still got to back the there's at a meeting, there'll be an agreement on a way ahead. You can disagree with it, but you still have to go with what the agreement is.
General.
Someone might tell me what he calls it, but that's the.
I've heard something similar from Colin Powell,
Yeah.
that, when we're in a meeting, when we're discussing things, disagreement actually stimulates me. He says that stimulates me at that point. But once we come to an agreement, then disagreement goes away, and we have to walk out of the room as if we made the decision. We have to own it as if we each made the decision ourselves. That's what loyalty means at that point.
So what's the biggest barrier to this?
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of times it's that we don't even slow down and think about it. We just think that, well, the culture is what it is. It's and leaders are kind of throw up their hands like, what can I do about it? It's always been that way. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that leaders aren't even aware that they can go to work on it. And we've worked with thousands of folks across the United States, into Europe, into Alaska. And what we know is that this stuff works. If you do it, you take the time and you invest the energy, you can take your culture from good to great, or from great to exceptional. But it takes a conscious effort. The other thing that can get in the way are, people who are quite anchored in the past, who are not interested in moving forward. And again, the job of leadership is to help those people come along, help inspire them, help coach them, help them to join the team. But sometimes that just doesn't work. And so leaders have to have the courage to help that person make a decision about, are you going to join us or are you not? There's no judgment in that, but this is where we're headed. And so you can join us, or if not, then it's probably time for you to find a different place to work.
Yeah, I worked for an organization where we parachuted somebody in who was going to be the agent of change, because we were moving from a on-premise organization to a SaaS organization. Everybody's SaaS now. I mean, it's and of course we had 20 years of history of people that had been there 20 years that were quite happy doing what they were doing, and we were going to have to change the way that people were measured, or the way that the way that somebody was seen as an expert. And of course, what happened was that the people that had been there for 20 years turned on the person who was the change agent, and went to the leadership and said that person's rubbish. And after 18 months, he got fired. But all he was doing was what he was paid to do. I mean, I thought he was. I'm still friends with him, and I've had to sit him down many a time and said, "You did what you were supposed to do." I'm not going to say his name. You did what you were supposed to do, and you were brilliant at it.
Yes,
and that's one of the things, because my next question was about, what can stop it, and that's a great example of where the leadership was trying to do something, and then they actually allowed the people that have been there 20 years to, in effect, take back control.
Well, someone's always leading, right? And in that example, it's actually a failure of leadership. That poor person that was parachuted in was set up for failure, in my opinion, because we actually we won't come in and help an organization unless the CEO literally hires us. They are the only one that we will allow to hire us, because we know that if we don't have the CEO's support, and the CEO is not really ready to do the work, then we're not interested, because we don't want to fail. So that's a really critical element. And then even there, you got to put out an aspiring future. Why are we doing this? Why are we making this change? Change for change sake is what people look at it most of the time. So you got to help people understand that. And usually folks who've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, doesn't matter. If they see a compelling future, then they'll join you. But if there is no compelling future, then they're going to just go back to their comfort zone and sort of stay where they are.
So how do you sustain this? Because you'll fly in, you'll do a whole load of stuff, and then you'll fly out. It all then goes back to where it was before, doesn't it?
No, that's one of the things we're quite proud of, actually, is that, folks will call us years later and they'll say, what is so amazing about this work is that it's still existing, and here's an example, or here's an example. And part of it's in how we structure our approach. We always start with the CEO and the executive leadership team. We go through a pretty intense 5-month journey with them, frankly, that starts with a very intense few-day retreat. And then we support them with individual coaching and individual mindset shifts. And then 95% of the time, they will then do the same thing with their next level of leaders. So it could be 20, 30 people, and they'll go through that same 5-month experience. The difference is we are co-leading it with the executive team, so that when those middle managers look up, they're not seeing Tom Willis, they're seeing Tom Willis plus their executive team. And so it's like, oh, this must be serious. This must be real. This must be where we're headed. And the executive team is providing real world examples. They're being open, they're being honest. They're not, hiding behind their professionalism. And that's what starts to create the momentum. And then there's even a third phase that we're not involved at all. We're sort of in the background coaching them as they continue to carry this work to the rest of the organization and to the rest of the employees. In fact, we have several clients that literally take some of our curriculum and they put their logo on it, and now they're running programs without us. And we love that. We think that's fantastic.
So how do you measure this?
How do you measure success?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. It depends on what the CEO is going for. So we spend several hours unearthing that at the beginning to say, what are you going for? What would success look like? And so in some cases, it can be, really straightforward. We are losing money and we need to stop the bleeding. We need to become profitable again. Or it could be on the softer end. It could be, I'm tired of babysitting my people and having them come to me when I want them to go to each other and work out issues between each other. And I'll come and help when I need to, but I don't want to do it every single day, all day long. So it could be really anything on that spectrum. It just depends on what they're trying to accomplish.
Right. And how do you balance business goals versus exceptional culture? How do you bring in the strategy of the organization and make sure that the thing's interwoven?
Well, yeah, great question, Tim. Most strategic plans fail, like 85% of them, depending on which article you read or which source you trust. But most strategic plans fail, and it's because of this, because there's not a strong foundation of intentional leadership, management, and coaching are the three tools that we talk a lot about. There's not an intentional foundation of a strong, engaged culture, because that's what you need first. You need to build a strategic plan and business goals and everything else, tactics, all of that needs to be built upon a strong foundation of culture. And if you don't get the culture right and the engagement right, then most of that stuff isn't going to work.
Yeah, I agree. And so how do you start?
You call us.
Not calling you, Tom, is not the answer to the is not the answer. Okay.
All right, I'll retract that answer then. Well, read the book. I mean that genuinely. There's a lot of stuff in our book, The Great Engagement, that are very pragmatic. We tried to keep it plain English. We didn't try to insert a bunch of consultant lingo and BS. We wanted to keep it very easy to understand. There's some very pragmatic tools in there. Folks that buy the book have access to our Elevate system, which is a literally personalized to the person. They go on our website, they take a 5 or 10 minute quiz, and it produces a 37-page customized workbook that gets at the heart of their unconscious, what we call default success strategies, the things that are motivating them and the things that are driving their behavior. And when you start to come together around a tool like that and start to coach each other, you can have huge breakthroughs in relationships and start to really come together. So it's possible to really tackle this on your own, but it takes a tremendous amount of work. It's, as we like to say, find someone that can help you, that can help facilitate it, that can help coach you through it, because it's just like every professional athlete, right? The Olympics were in Paris. None of those Olympians made it there without a coach. And yet as leaders, we don't think we need a coach sometimes. But why? Why wouldn't we accept help? Why wouldn't we bring on somebody that can help us? In fact, when I was the CEO, I felt like it took me about 4 or 5 years to build a great team. And I think with our work, I could have done it in 5 months if I'd known it existed. So it's really an accelerant when you find the right person, but you got to find somebody who's willing to guarantee results and to promise the outcomes you're looking for.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on and talking today. I agree with you. It's a very easy to read book. As with most books today, you've got a lot of diagrams in there, which breaks up the text, and you've got little exercises and that to do as well. So that's good as well, which keeps the interest going. So yeah, great, I loved it. Great book. Certainly recommend it. So if I wanted to buy a copy, where can I get one?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. That's the most obvious place. If you're looking to place a bulk order of over 50 copies, shoot me an email and we'll connect you with our team and help you place that order a little more easily. My email is just tom@phoenixperform.com, or like I said, you can find me on LinkedIn or go to thegreatengagementbook.com.
Excellent. Tom, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, The Great Resignation Cross Through Engagement.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I really appreciate the time.